Welcome back. As we have been reporting, the federal government officially shut down last night at midnight. Lawmakers failing to come to a spending agreement. Some federal services will be halted. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers could be furloughed. The impending shutdown did not stop the president from rolling ahead with his tariff agenda. Drug makers are facing a Monday deadline for pharmaceutical tariffs. President Trump touting a new deal with Pfizer to cut drug costs, and he launched a new website, Trump RX, which lets Americans buy medicines directly from manufacturers. Pfizer agreeing to offer big discounts on many popular drugs, the company investing $70 billion in American manufacturing, and it will receive a 3-year tariff exemption in return. The president also imposing new tariffs on furniture, heavy trucks, and foreign-made movies. U.S. tariff revenue topping $31 billion in September alone, according to the latest Treasury data. Yesterday, Jameson Greer told me that they have already raised $150 billion year-to-date in tariffs. Joining me now to discuss all of that and a lot more is the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal. Our North Star, Emma Tucker, is here. Emma, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Maria.
Thank you so much. We've got so much to discuss on the Trump agenda, but let me start here and get this elephant out of the room. How are you covering the Trump administration? Trump is suing the Journal, right?
Yes, he is. But, Maria, we're covering this administration like we would cover any other administration. He is suing us. That's not something I want to talk about now. And there's certainly no shortage of other news for us to be getting stuck into.
And the big story of the day, of course, is the government shutdown. So how do you see this?
Well, listen. First of all, what's the economic impact of this shutdown likely to be? That's hard to tell. It depends on the duration of the shutdown. Other shutdowns have impacted the economy, but generally speaking, the economy has bounced back. But it's a high-stakes game, this one does feel a bit different. I think for the Democrats, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for them. You know, President Trump has threatened to fire federal workers. That would not be a good look for them, so they may have to cave. And if they cave, that does not look good. Plus, they don't get the funding that they're going after restored. So, look, it does. You know, it also feels like yesterday there was no real desire for a compromise on any side. So your guess is as good as mine.
You know, I thought after Charlie Kirk's murder that we would see the country coming together. I thought we would see a lot more unity, and we're still seeing this fighting back and forth. But Secretary of War Pete Hegseth yesterday was rallying the troops, really talking about vowing to end woke policies at Quantico and reinforce this warrior ethos. The president pushed forward his crime crackdown, deploying National Guard troops to Portland over Antifa violence, property damage. The White House already deploying troops to Memphis, Chicago, and D.C. Louisiana's governor is now asking for a deployment to New Orleans. Emma, you're covering the domestic policy across the board here. What do you make of the national troops going in and these Democrats pushing back and saying, we don't want any help? Crime is not what you think it is.
Well, clearly crime is an issue. You know,
a big issue.
Yeah, people are unhappy about crime, inner city crime. The perception is, or whether it's, you know, people feel and are noticing that crime is all around them. So clearly it's an issue. Whether sending federal troops into cities in the way that this administration has proposed is, you know, it's difficult to know whether that's the right thing. I think some people see it as big overreach. Other people, frankly, are happy to see some sort of strong action being taken.
You know, I think people, for the first time, are questioning the American dream, which I find really incredible. There was a poll out of Wall Street Journal, North Poll, that showed Americans losing faith that hard work leads to economic gains. You grew up knowing that if you work hard, you can achieve success no matter where you came from, right? This poll reveals massive gender gap on economy as women see things more negatively, and there's a divide between parties as Republicans see things more positively.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that really jumped out at me from that poll was exactly what you were saying, and it's this fear amongst people that their children won't be better off than they are. That always used to be the deal. You worked hard, you set things up well for your kids, then they worked hard, and with each generation, they got richer. But I think there's this fear now that maybe that's not the case anymore, and so people are feeling disillusioned. And it is interesting, the data shows that women are less optimistic than men, and obviously it goes without saying that Republicans are more optimistic than Democrats, but the gender divide is a real thing that shows up in all our polling.
It's interesting that women are feeling worse than men. I don't know why that is, you know?
Well, we do all the worrying.
Well, and we've got all the balls in the air, right?
Yeah.
You've got work, your family, family, and you're thinking about. I don't know. I know that's a generalization, but I feel like men are looking at one thing, and we're looking at 5 things.
And perhaps we're thinking more acutely about the outcome for our kids. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I think.
International news, Emma. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreeing to President Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza on Monday. They're working now toward a peace deal. As he says, he's helped solve 7 global conflicts. The president still pushing for an agreement between Russia and Ukraine. How do you see these conflicts in terms of the way you're covering them?
Well, again, we cover them in great depth because they all have an impact on the economy and business sentiment, even though they're, on the other side of the world. Look, there are big, intractable problems. They, the sort of proactive stance that the president is taking to try and resolve them, I think, is welcome. Certainly, in Europe and in Ukraine, the change of heart from the administration there has been greatly welcomed. But listen, solving the problem with the Middle East, that's been going on. People have been trying to do that for 2 millennia. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. And, let's hope some sort of progress is made because it's been going on for far too long.
And of course, China has been the big story. And I think this administration is covering and looking at China around national security issues. Yeah. There's been the rare earth minerals issue. I spoke with Jameson Greer yesterday, the U.S. Trade Representative, and he told me a little of the backdrop of the fact that it's the refining of these rare earth minerals that happens in China. We have rare earth minerals in America, but they refine them in China. Yeah. Here's the trade rep yesterday with me in New York.
With rare earth minerals, they are used, for example, to make magnets. And the magnets need to go in motors for electric vehicles, motors in drones. Anything electrical with the motor has these rare earth magnets. The United States actually invented this technology. The main producers were in the United States until the 90s when some of those businesses were sold and moved to China, and with the idea that they can produce at scale. There were environmental issues, and now, of course, we're in a position where China has sought to use those rare earth magnets as a tool of economic coercion. Nominally, the Chinese will say, well, the president increased tariffs on us on April 2nd, therefore, we put these controls on rare earth magnets. But if you look at the trade data, they actually started reducing their exports earlier in the year, before anything even happened. And then when they put their new controls in place, it wasn't just against the U.S., it was against the world. I was deployed to Geneva along with the Treasury Secretary to try to find some accommodation with the Chinese in the near term where our tariffs on them wouldn't be so high. We were at like 145%. It's pretty high. I like tariffs, but that's pretty high. And then to get the rare earth magnets flowing again. And we did manage to have an agreement that we would both come down and they would open the valve on that.
It's interesting to me because America does have rare earth minerals, right? I mean, so it's just the refining that happens in China. How come we can't create new companies to do that refining in America? How long would that take to get something like that up and running?
Well, we're already in the process of doing that. We invented the technology, we did it here. It became, there's permitting and regulatory issues, right? There are environmental regulations, so this is not about trade or any of that, it's about that issue. But I will say, given what the Chinese have done, we have started to reestablish those supply chains here in the U.S.
And one of those ways is they're investing in that MP company. They're taking stakes in companies.
Yes.
And there's the rare earth issue for us, and then there's the chips for China.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think this is a way of explaining some of the more interventionist stances that this administration are taking. They're looking at where sort of global trade, unfettered global trade got us, and they're saying, well, we don't like the balance here. We don't like the fact that we can't, manufacture or deal with our own rare earth minerals here. So refine them here. So whether it's that or chips, we are going to take an approach by the government to try and reshape things.
Control our own fate.
Control our own fate a bit more. And so that's goes against the sort of ethos of the last few decades.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing digitally, and that's why I really like to read the Journal on my phone, because I could click on and see an interview that you've done, to see some video of your reporters reading it. And I know you're doing that with everything, but you're really gearing up on the Wall Street Journal's USA 250 series. And the country's celebrating its 250th anniversary next year. Tell us about the world's, the story of the world's greatest economy is how you're titling it. Tell me what you're doing for America 250.
Well, we're very excited about this project. So in the run-up to this big anniversary next year, we thought, well, what can we do at the Wall Street Journal to really sort of mark this? And the obvious lane for us is the world's greatest economy, capitalism, this incredible experiment, 250 years of free markets underpinned by democracy, and the unbelievable wealth that has generated in America. So the series is going to look at the people who shaped this economy, the big turning points, the big successes, the big failures, the innovations, but really this celebration in this completely unique experiment. I mean, it hasn't happened anywhere else in the world. And whatever challenges America faces, like many other countries in the world, the one thing it remains incredibly good at is generating enormous wealth. So
I think
we're
that's
celebrating
a great
that.
point, because, when you look at the U.S. versus Europe, for example, right now we've got like what? Six $1 trillion companies, right? We've got, and we've got a couple of companies that are $4 trillion, right? NVIDIA's $4 trillion, a couple of others, Microsoft's close to it. When you look at Europe, the largest market value company in Europe is $350 billion, or $300 billion, and that's because of Ozempic.
Yeah.
Right? So what is that?
Well, I mean, you look at it, Europe is more equal, but it's much, much poorer. And what you have here, and what came out of this great experiment, was this idea that, individuals, they're free from the sort of, when they came here, they were free from the class system, the norms, that it was all down to individuals, it was up to them, they could make or break themselves. And that was, eventually underpinned by legislation and the Constitution. And so people were free to make wealth here. And that's the big difference. Europe is about the collective. America has always been about the individual. And, at the moment, America is sort of it's sort of spiraling off from the rest of the world. So much wealth is being generated here. And frankly, Europe is very much, and Europe knows it, it's sort of stuck in the slow lane and needs to break out of this sluggishness.
I think partly because of regulation.
Yeah.
But Emma, are you going to do the same coverage in the paper as you will digitally for 250, or will you have more richness digitally?
Well, obviously we'll have more richness digitally. We'll have videos, we'll have podcasts, we'll have interactives. But people who read the paper, what we're hoping to do is lure them into our digital products via QR codes. We've started putting those in the print edition, and a lot of our print readers have been going on to sort of get this extra richness that you're talking about through these codes.
Is the advertising growth on the digital side or on the paper side?
The advertising, well, mostly all our growth is on the digital side, all of it. That's where our focus is.
So you've got lots of resources going into that for 250. Thank you so much for walking us through it.
So thank you, Maria.
We look forward to it. The Wall Street Journal, America 250. Check out the series online and in the paper. Emma Tucker, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.